When we think about massive global entertainment empires, we usually picture giant, hyper-focused corporate machines, right? But in this explainer, we're diving into the ultimate case study in cultural management. We're looking at a small group of Japanese artists who built a legendary worldwide brand, not by conforming to the industry standard, but by fiercely, stubbornly protecting their unique cultural identity. And nothing shows that better than this. Mononoke Hime, no cut. So get this, that message was attached to an actual replica samurai sword and sent directly to Harvey Weinstein, who was co-chairman of Miramax at the time. Weinstein wanted to heavily edit and Americanize the script for the epic film Princess Mononoke, just to make it more marketable in the West. Studio Ghibli's producer Toshio Suzuki just responded with that sword and those 5 words. It's a wild story, but it perfectly illustrates their absolute refusal to compromise. They were not going to let distributors hack away at their cultural masterpiece, period. So that brings up a really fascinating paradox. How does a small Japanese studio conquer the hyper-globalized world without changing a single frame of its art? I mean, in an era where media is constantly localized, tweaked, and focus grouped to death for international audiences, Studio Ghibli proved that maintaining strict authenticity can actually be the key to massive, unprecedented global success. All right, let's get into Section 1, Identity Against Globalization. From the very moment they were founded in 1985, Studio Ghibli intended to literally blow a new wind through the Japanese animation industry. Look at this comparison here. While the whole globalized industry rushed toward computer graphics, heavy localization, and profit-driven franchises, the Ghibli way went in the exact opposite direction. We're talking artisanal, hand-drawn illustrations, gorgeous watercolors, and entirely original self-contained stories. They completely refused to churn out endless sequels just to appease shareholders or make a quick buck. And that uncompromising artistic vision, that basically became their ultimate management strategy.
Moving on to Section 2, the icon Hayao Miyazaki.
You really can't grasp the Ghibli way without looking at its guiding philosopher. Think about this timeline. Born in Tokyo in 1941, right in the middle of World War II, Hayao Miyazaki experienced the horrors of conflict and bombing raids firsthand. His family actually had to flee the city for safety. And interestingly enough, his father worked in a factory building parts for Japanese fighter planes, which sparked this lifelong, deeply complicated fascination with aviation for young Hayao. By 1963, he starts his animation career at Toei, learning the craft, and by 1984, the sheer success of his independent film, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, led directly to the founding of Studio Ghibli. So Miyazaki wasn't just directing cartoons, He was embedding deeply personal, timeless values right into his company's DNA. That childhood trauma we just talked about, it fueled a lifelong pacifist ethic. His whole philosophy centers on finding profound beauty in really mundane, everyday moments, stuff like just eating a meal or watching the wind blow through the grass. Plus, his films are famous for featuring complex, strong female heroines, an almost spiritual respect for nature, and stark warnings against the devastating effects of pollution. This vision, prioritizing art way over focus groups, created a brand identity that literally no competitor could replicate. Which brings us to Section 3. The no-cuts strategy. Okay, so when you have art this personal and culturally specific, how do you actually protect it from massive foreign corporations? Well, in the late 90s, Ghibli made a distribution deal with Disney. But Disney actually altered early VHS releases of films like Kiki's Delivery Service. They changed the music and added unauthorized dialogue, basically trying to make it feel more familiar to American kids. Ghibli executives immediately pushed back. They demanded strict contract adherence and even held a side-by-side viewing to prove the breach of their no-cuts policy. And guess what? They successfully flipped the power dynamic. Disney had to apologize and from then on agreed to 0 unauthorized cuts or alterations for international releases. Let's look at Section 4, Works that Cross Borders. By stubbornly holding their ground, Studio Ghibli delivered pure, unadulterated Japanese masterworks to the entire world. Just look at this lineup. My Neighbor Totoro in 1988 introduced their iconic, cuddly forest spirit that became the company's official mascot. Princess Mononoke in 1997 absolutely shattered domestic box office records with its fierce, complex environmental themes. Spirited Away in 2001 gave us a breathtaking journey into Japanese folklore, and Howl's Moving Castle in 2004 delivered a powerful anti-war message wrapped up in this beautiful, European-flavored fantasy. They trusted the audience's intelligence. They proved that a story doesn't need to be watered down or westernized to be universally loved.
And man,
That deep trust paid off in a historic, unprecedented way in 2003. That is the year Spirited Away won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. It became the very first non-English film to ever do so. This wasn't just a win for a single movie. It was absolute proof, on the biggest global stage imaginable, that their rigid, uncompromising strategy of cultural management actually worked.
And finally, Section 5, Princess of Asturias Award.
All those decades of uncompromising dedication led to a massive validation. The 2026 Princess of Asturias Award for Communication and Humanities recognized Studio Ghibli for exactly what they are. As you can see in this table, the jury didn't just praise their sheer artistry and handcrafted animation. No, they highlighted the studio as a vital cultural bridge uniting people from entirely different backgrounds. They were celebrated for transmitting timeless values like empathy and respect, and for their deep, enduring commitment to environmentalism. This prestigious honor beautifully validates their long-term management strategy, really recognizing them not just as a film studio, but as a crucial pillar of global humanities.
All of this is anchored by a really profound reflection from Hayao Miyazaki himself. He once said, "You may not like what's happening, but just accept it and let's try to live together. Even if you feel angry, let's be patient and endure. Let's try to live together. I've realized that this is the only way forward." His philosophy of patience and endurance perfectly encapsulates the studio's entire journey. They didn't panic when the world moved entirely to CGI. They didn't surrender their cultural soul to aggressive overseas distributors. They just held on to their roots. And by doing so, they eventually won over the world.
So, to wrap up this explainer, Studio Ghibli showed us that you absolutely do not have to sacrifice who you are to be successful on a global scale. In fact, your unique cultural identity might just be your greatest asset. So I want to leave you with this final thought. In our hyper-connected, deeply commercialized world where everyone is constantly pressured to conform, how are you going to protect your own authenticity?